Hey guys, so many of you would have seen the headlines last week about Tesla joining the S&P 500. There's been a lot of buzz around this, and in today's video I want to take a look at what this means and how it could affect your investments. This is a really big deal in the financial world, so let's take a look to see why. So as many of you know, I started this channel just a few months ago with the aim of reaching 1,000 subscribers before the 22nd of February. Why the 22nd of February? Such a specific date? Well, that's because we will have our first little addition to the family making a grand entrance on that day. So if you haven't done so yet, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and help me edge closer and closer to that 1,000 subscriber mark. Okay, back to the video. So what is the S&P 500? Well, the US has a few stock market indexes, and some of the main ones that people refer to are the Nasdaq, the Dow Jones, and the S&P 500. These are probably the best known ones around the world. So the S&P 500 is an index, and it makes up the 500 biggest companies listed in America. These are companies like Microsoft and Apple, Alphabet, which owns Google, and McDonald's, JP Morgan. All of these names that you're quite familiar with and would have heard of in the past. Some companies used to be part of the S&P 500, but no longer are. And these are companies like Harley-Davidson, Macy's, and the New York Times. But if a company is included in that index, it doesn't mean they make up an equal portion of that index. It's not like every company makes up 0.2% or 1/500th of that index. In fact, each company is weighted according to their value or market capitalization. So if a company is bigger, then they'll make up a bigger portion of that index. If you look at the index today, the top 10 biggest companies in the S&P 500 account for more than 25% of the weighting of the index, which means the other 490 companies make up the remaining 75%. So why should this matter to you? Well, many of you may be investing in mutual funds or exchange traded funds, ETFs, or maybe you're planning to do so in the future. And many of these funds will go out and buy the companies in the S&P 500 to replicate that benchmark. And what that means is that the fund will go and buy each of those 500 companies in exactly the same weightings and proportions that the index does. For example, the VOO ETF from Vanguard does exactly this. Now, every quarter, they reassess the companies in the S&P 500. If a company is dropped in value, it may now be excluded, while if another company is increased, it may be included in the S&P 500. And here is where Tesla comes into it. So it was just announced that Tesla will be joining the S&P 500. And that means that they're now one of the 500 biggest companies listed on the US stock market. How big? Well, based on their current stock price, the entire business is valued at around $475 billion. And at $475 billion, they're not just in the top 500 companies, the top 400 companies, or even the top 300 companies. In fact, with that valuation, they'll be in the top 10 biggest companies in the S&P 500. And if you take a look at the stock price of Tesla throughout this year, you'll see that it started the year at around $86 a share. And by mid-November, it hit $490 a share. I mean, that's a massive move. So many people think of Tesla as a car maker. So how does that compare to other car makers? I mentioned earlier that Tesla is valued at around $475 billion. How does that compare to companies like VW and Ford and BMW? Well, at the moment, Ford is valued at around $35 billion, VW at $80 billion, and BMW at about $50 billion. So even if you combine all three of these big car making companies, you reach a total of about $165 billion. So Tesla's worth almost 3 times as much as all three of those companies together. And that's the thing with Tesla. It's become so much more than just a car maker. When people think of an electric car, they think of Tesla. When they think of automotive innovation, technology and self-driving vehicles, they think of Tesla. When they think of battery life expansion and increased performance, again, they think of Tesla. And that's one of the reasons why Tesla has built up a really loyal following with some die-hard fans. It kind of reminds me a bit of how people used to feel about Apple. So what can you expect to happen to their stock price? Well, for this it's useful to look at the history and to see what happened in the past. Normally, when this type of announcement is made of a company being added to the S&P 500 index, as you may expect, there is a positive reaction from the stock market and the stock price jumps. Immediately, there will be more interest and visibility for that stock. And all of those mutual funds and ETFs that I mentioned earlier will be adding the stock to their portfolios once that change becomes effective on 21 December 2020. So all of this flow of money into the stock will increase the demand, and this will lead to higher prices. And this is probably what we can expect to happen in the case of Tesla. But one tip for you guys to keep in mind is that normally a few weeks after the announcement, there is a bit of a drop in the stock price as some traders and investors take some profit from that initial increase in the stock price. Elon Musk is a real-life Tony Stark, the Iron Man. And it's not just because of his awesome dance moves. He's undoubtedly a genius. He's taken Tesla and he's built it to be one of the most valuable companies in the world. He's also had amazing achievements at the Boring Company, Hyperloop, and that small thing called SpaceX. Elon was also one of the founders of PayPal, which is something that many of us use all the time. Now, I am a bit biased because Elon Musk is South African like me, but I still think that many of these achievements are really phenomenal. So you may also find it interesting that Elon Musk is now the third richest person in the world. He's just overtaken Mark Zuckerberg, who's the founder of Facebook, and has a total net worth of $114 billion. It seems just a matter of time before he passes Bill Gates and then sets his sights on Jeff Bezos, who's the founder of Amazon and the richest person in the world with a wealth of around $183 billion. And of course, Elon and Jeff Bezos have a bit of beef because they're fierce competitors in their space programs with SpaceX and Blue Origin. Elon's wealth has increased by $88 billion just in 2020 so far, and that translates to around $13.5 million every single hour. Not bad for an Afrikaans boy from Pretoria. Have any of you invested in Tesla stock, or maybe you're planning on buying some now? If you had some, you would have done really well this year and made a huge return. Let me know in the comment section down below. Also, feel free to let me know if there's any other topics that you'd like me to cover in future videos. You can follow me on Instagram too, here's my handle. And if you found this video useful and interesting, please make sure you subscribe to the channel and give it the thumbs up. I'll see you next week.